I'm here with Tim Carstens, Managing Director of Base Resources. Tim, you put out a quite impressive set of quarterly results for the September quarter. Were you happy with the performance of the company and the operations this quarter?
Yeah, look, I've been happy with the operations of the company for 8 quarters now. I mean, it's becoming almost boring each quarter. We have such a degree of consistency in our production volumes. It's a very predictable operation, extremely well run by the guys. Good control of costs, so we don't see much variability in that either. And the sales performance has continued to be strong. We don't really run any inventory anymore. The market is such that as soon as we can produce enough to justify another ship, the ship comes in and takes it away. So we're really hand to mouth in that sense. So the operation's running beautifully.
You've obviously had a few switches in the last year or so. You've moved from dozer trap mining to hydraulic mining units, and then on top of that you're moving towards a phase 2 expansion of the project. Have you been happy with the performance of the hydraulic units, and can you tell us a little bit about the timetable for the phase 2 expansion?
Sure. Hydro mining was a methodology that we decided to trial back in August of last year to see whether that could be a solution to deconstraining our mining operation as we moved into the Kwale phase 2 project. So we've been using it for a while now, and it's been enormously successful. We started with a 400 tonne per hour unit. We've now doubled the size of that capacity up to 800 tonnes per hour, and we have plans to now move that up to 2,400 tonnes per hour as part of Kwale phase 2. It's been extremely successful, and it will replace the dozer trap mining unit in due course. We'll park that up and keep that for a rainy day. Kwale phase 2 is a project that's aimed at deconstraining our mine and our our concentrator in order to combat what has always been an understood declining in grade over time, so that we can keep our mineral separation plant full and maintain our current high levels of production. So the solution to the mining aspect of that has been hydro mining. For the concentrator, we're simply increasing the number of spirals by a factor of 60 or 70% additional spirals. So it's a significant increase in capacity. But what that'll enable us to do is just continue to punch out concentrate sufficient to feed our mineral separation plant right through the life of the mine.
You've spoken about the better markets for your 3 main commodities, the rutile, ilmenite and zircon. Do you expect those improvements to continue through 2018?
Yeah, I mean, the key change over the last 12 months really has been a recovery in the ilmenite price, rather than sort of a run in the ilmenite price. It's recovered back to its normal relativity with the rutile price. They tend to trade in a 4 to 6 times range, driven by utility and use in production of pigment. So we've seen that range sort of re-established, and now we're starting to see the rutile and other high-grade feedstock prices moving up. So that we've recovered on the ilmenite, and now we're seeing a nice glide path up on the TiO2 suite. Zircon's seen a little more dramatic change. I mean, over the course of 2017, we've seen a 50% increase in price, driven by sound fundamentals. The supply and demand balance is well and truly back, and we can see a shortfall coming over the next sort of 12 months or so. So the dynamics for zircon look really good.
Kenya's obviously been making headlines in the news for the political situation there in recent months. Has it had an impact on day-to-day operations, and where does Base's operations sit within the overall political issues?
Well, I mean, in terms of day-to-day impact on our operations, there have been none. The violence that you will have seen covered on television tend to be really quite isolated to some of the opposition strongholds in Nairobi and out in the Western Rift Valley. So we don't see anything down where we are. So no issue from an operational point of view. County government is all operating normally, which is sort of the second tier of government in Kenya. There were no sort of issues that flowed out of the elections around that. So it's really something that's isolated to the presidency. Can't underestimate how significant that is for Kenya. I mean, we've seen something like $2.5 billion US dollars wiped off the stock market in Nairobi in the last month. So it is having a significant effect. But in terms of us, we're fully permitted for what we need. We don't really need anything from the national government at this point or for the foreseeable future. We have remained studiously apolitical, so we're kind of ambivalent about who's in power. We maintain relationships right across the spectrum. So we're just, like everybody else, sitting and waiting to see how this resolves. We are off the constitutional map, so to speak, in Kenya, so it's really going to come down to Supreme Court decisions and the ultimately rational behaviour, one hopes, of the political leaders.
We seem to be witnessing a change in sentiment in recent months, perhaps the last 6 or 12 months, with mining stocks, and particularly African mining stocks, sort of coming back, witnessing a little bit more support from investors. Are you seeing that, and what's your feelings for the next 6 to 12 months? Is it a more positive outlook?
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly seen a strong impact on our price. A lot of new investors coming to the stock, and a few old investors coming back to the stock. We certainly saw that very strongly in the first 3 or 4 months of the year. Then we had a few upsets through the middle of the year, things like the Tanzanian legislative change that had an impact on investor sentiment. And I think that still shows, for us, and we're in Kenya, while we share a border, the political philosophies between Tanzania and Kenya couldn't be more different. But I think that shows that while the appetite's coming back, it's still a bit skittish. And I think it also shows that there's not a lot of graduation in the way people still think about Africa. But that'll come over time as people re-engage. But there's definitely a change in sentiment and appetite. And as you would well know from ADU this year, there was a noticeably different tone to the event compared to the last couple of years.
Great. Thanks very much, Tim Carstens.
Thank you.